This afternoon, I would like to discuss with you this concept or skill called psychometry and the Akashic record. Psychometry is defined in different way from psychology. In fact, actually, the word psychometry started in parapsychology. Um, Many of the questions that are answered in, in psychometry are, for example, don't you wonder why certain primitive people refuse to have their pictures taken or to shake hands with strangers? What is the reason for this? Scientific people mind, scientific people are of the opinion that this is just superstition by primitive people. Actually, there is a basis for this because when you touch something, you leave something of yourself in that object. Or the same way that if you go to a certain place, you leave certain things about yourself. And that's why in certain parts of the Philippines and in some countries like Tahiti and Africa, they do not let any part of your body, like hair or nail clippings, nail cuttings, uh, to be touched or given to somebody. They bury it um, underground because they feel that if it is taken by somebody who is a sorcerer or mangkukulam, they can they can hex you, uh, and they can do something bad using that as a means to get to you. And that's why they're very careful about those mga droppings or anything belonging to your blood um, should not be touched by other people or should not be given because of this possibility. Now, psychometry and the Akashic record. What's the connection? Psychometry is actually literally means soul measurement from the two words psyche, which is soul or mind, and metric, which is measurement. So psychometry means soul or mind measurement. In psychology, psycho- psych- psychometry refers to the measurement of certain mental traits like intelligence, aptitude test, and the analysis of this done by psychometricians. This is very different from how we understand psychometry as a psychic skill. The one who discovered psychometry as a psychic skill was Joseph Rose Buchanan. I think he was a physician in the 1800s because he was puzzled by how come that some people can hold an object and tell something about the object and those who have held that object. He gathered a lot of statistics and cases of people who were able to do this. And he wrote the book, Emmanuel of Psychometry. In fact, he was the one who first coined the word psychometry, meaning soul measurement. And there are people, for example, during the war, who would hold a container that is filled with, let's say, mercury, and they will get mercury poisoning, although they did not touch the mercury content, only the outside, the container. Or if they touch a container with lead, they will have lead poisoning or the symptoms of lead poisoning. And this puzzled him because what's the connection? And I found out that there are some people who can really imbibe, receive, or interpret an object and its history. So psychometry became a subject of studies in several parts of the world. And there are many cases of people who are able to tell something about the object and the history of the object by simply touching it. I myself have had quite a number of experiences in this regard, to my surprise, that I'm able to hold an object and then tell something about the person who has held it. There is also a belief, for example, that the hills have eyes and the walls have ears. What is the origin of this belief? The hills have eyes and the walls have ears. It is because anything that happens in that place can be revealed to somebody who is sensitive to it. I remember a particular case, an example. In one building, two persons quarreled viciously and they almost came to blows with each other in the morning. And then after that, they left the building already. In the afternoon, there was this woman with a 3-year-old daughter walking towards the room where this incident happened. The girl was happy, singing a tune, and like a usual 3-year-old. But as soon as the 3-year-old girl stepped into the room, she started crying uncontrollably. And the mother was surprised. There was nothing that happened. He just entered the room and she started crying. And the girl couldn't understand what's happening also. So the mother took the baby or took the girl out of the room and she stopped crying. Now, the reason she started crying is that she felt the energy, the negativity, the hostility of the two people who who was in a quarrel, eh, who was in a quarrelsome situation or came almost coming to blows. And that is embedded in the walls, in the atmosphere, and could be felt. That's why you can also feel um, certain energies, negative energies, in cemeteries, in hospitals, etc. There was a time that I was confined in a hospital. I won't tell you which hospital it is. I was in the ICU, and I felt very uncomfortable. And I asked the nurse to change my room and said there's no room available except this. So I was forced to stay there for a while, and then in the evening, I suddenly felt some dripping. I thought it was my blood that was coming out of the tube. It turned out that there was a leakage on top of my bed, and so they had to change my room to another room, where I felt better. I think some spirits made sure that I changed that place because I felt the energy, the negative energy, and I was told by the nurse there that there are so many patients who died in that room. So these are people experience this without knowing why. Another example is, let's say, a knife that you use to cut vegetables or fruits. This knife will not have any strong emotional significance, no, or meaning. But if this same knife was used to kill somebody with anger, with violence, no, this knife acquires a different energy. And somebody who is sensitive, who holds that knife, will feel how it was used for murder. There are people who became known to be very good at psychometry. And one of the best known, and books have been written about him, was a Dutch peasant by the name of Gerard Croiset. Gerard Croiset can be given any item owned by somebody or touched by anybody, and he will give a complete description of the person, even his whereabouts or what he is doing and where he came from and the circumstance, even his health, by just touching an object that was touched or held by that individual. And he was studied by a professor at the University of Utrecht. to have this particular ability. And Crochet has helped the police of the Netherlands and even the FBI and the Scotland Yard of England sought his help for missing persons or murder victims, to locate murder victims and also to locate the suspects. And he was able to help them. When I was in Utrecht, I was from Dusseldorf conference in Dusseldorf in Germany. We went, just about 30 minutes or so, and you're in the Netherlands. And I talked to the head of the psychotronics society of the Netherlands, and he showed me a letter written by the chief of police of Utrecht, saying that 12 cases of murder in Utrecht were solved by the help of psychics. Unfortunately, I did not get a copy of this testimonial from the chief of police of Utrecht, but it is a testimonial that is, you can duplicate this in many countries. There are people who can do this. And in my class on ESP, I teach people, one of the psychic skills that I teach is psychometry, where I ask each of the participants to place an object in an envelope without showing it to anybody, and then it will be randomly distributed to others. So you do not know to whom this object belongs. And they're given some instructions how to go down to the alpha level of the brain waves or meditation, like in a very light trance state, and then just hold the object and then say whatever comes to his mind. And about 70% to 75% of the participants are able to tell something really definite and verifiable about the person who owned the object. I remember a very interesting case. There was a Swedish woman and a Japanese in the class. And so happened that the object belonging to the Japanese, the Swedish woman got it. Of course, she didn't know who owns it. It was actually 3 stamps, Philippine stamps, that this Japanese placed in his pocket for 3 days, because he wanted to write a letter to his, relatives in Japan. So it was not something like a necklace or a ring and all that, but it's a stamp. And when I learned about what he placed there, I said, this is going to be difficult to read because some people might have touched those stamps in the post office. Anyway, this Swedish woman started reading that object inside the envelope and said, I see a man who is eating corn. And then he is riding a bicycle. Then the Japanese said, that is my object to touch. And you're absolutely correct. Said, I eat corn soup every day and I go to office riding a bicycle. So how did that woman get this? Just by touching the 3 stamps that was held by these Japanese. This is how psychometry works. Any object that you touch becomes embedded by certain vibrations or frequencies or energy of the person who touched it. And this is the reason, I think, why the Christian religion, the Christian church, is they revere the relics of saints and holy persons, especially those of Christ, the Holy Family. I understand that the Mass, the Christian Mass, cannot be said without a relic that is on the table, on the altar. I don't know whether that is still a practice of the Catholic and other Christian churches. But why is it that they revere or they give a lot of importance to relics? It is because they believe that the vibration of that, for example, a saint will pass on to the person who has held that object. But what is the reason why this happens? Is it just superstition? Is there any scientific evidence for this? Well, when you talk of science, scientific evidence, we cannot prove it scientifically because it is this thing we're talking about um, do not belong to the physical world. They belong to the non-physical world of reality. And there is no instrument that could measure or observe what's happening in the supernatural field. So when we talk about these things, we cannot really prove it scientifically, and therefore it is ignored by Western mainstream science. But in the East, there is this concept that everything, if you resolve it into its ultimate component, there is something that's there, and it is the Akasha. The Akasha is the substratum of reality. It is that which is left, which is not in the physical level. It is something that is in the in the ether, and that is that 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 ether is something that is non-physical. The Akasha is known to the Eastern Hindu religion, and they have defined it in the Vedas and in the other scriptures. I think that in the Western world, quantum physics came very, very close now to this concept of the Akasha. Of course, they don't call it Akasha; they call it, well, certain characteristics of particle physics seem to have this characteristic of the Akasha, because it is an information, a particle that registers information and can be tangled up with others so that you can actually relay messages through the Akasha or the particles. So it also, uh, the Akasha also explains things like why it is not good to bring antiques into your house if you don't know the origin or history of the antiques. It can create bad luck or good luck. It depends on where these antiques came from. So this is the explanation for all these things. No? Now there are some questions coming in, but I don't know whether I can read them. I don't. I There is from Vic Flores. Hi sir, good afternoon. Does it mean that an empathic person is more sensitive in having this kind of feelings, experiencing those? Yes, if you're an empath, you will be able to feel it. In fact, some people don't feel anything. It's not for everybody. Only sensitives and those who have high level of consciousness and spirituality become sensitive to these higher vibrations. So if you're not sensitive to this, you won't feel anything, and you say, "Oh, you're talking nonsense," and will not believe you. So yes, if you're an empath, you can feel and sympathize, no, with objects, not only people. Okay, and let's go back to this discussion about antiques. There is the case of an executive, very well known executive, died, and he had a favorite executive desk made of Nara, beautiful one. When he died, all his things that he used in his office were placed in a museum. He's a very well-known person in the Philippines. He, he headed a conglomerate. Now, one day, the son, Carlos, used the executive desk of his father because he said, sayang, nobody's using it. It's just there rotting in the museum. Now, shortly after that, there were incidents that happened in the room, in the office, where he placed this executive desk. There were apparitions of people, and one time a security guard followed the person who entered the restroom of that executive and waited for that person to come out. He never came out. So he went inside and knocked on the knocked on the toilet door and found nobody there. So this happened several times, and I was asked to investigate. And when I said that I don't feel the presence of the spirit here now, but I get the feeling that it has something to do with the desk, no, executive desk. And so I was told about the history of this, that it belonged to the old man who died. I said that, you better bring this back or take it back to the museum because the old man doesn't want this thing to be used by anybody. Well, as soon as they removed this, after Carlos didn't believe it at first, but then later on he relented and kept it out of the room and the manifestation stopped. Okay, let's read some more questions below. What does it mean when I often see unknown persons in my dreams? Well, dreams are dreams. I mean, they they are the products of our subconscious mind. And many times there are people that we don't know to appear in our dreams. No, but in the dream we know them. But in person you don't. Because dreams can be of the past, could be of the present, could be of the future. It's possible that person you will meet later on. Maybe now you don't know. So there are many reasons why certain people appear in our dreams. We have a connection to them, not necessarily in the present. Could have been in the past life, or could be in the future. So that's why you don't know them. So that's one reason. Okay. All right. Any more questions before we continue? Rita Lourdes Cruz says hi, and I say hi too, Rita. Thank you for watching. Rian Ruiz says good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon too. Good day, Sir GB. Kiko. Hello, Kiko. Hello, Santos, former student. Burns Jose, hi, sir. Good afternoon. Well, good afternoon too. Well, if you have any question, it would be better. Although some greetings are okay, but we can make a better use of our time if you have questions, and I can answer them if I can. Sir, astral projection safe. We discussed this already before. One of during the second broadcast is all about astral projection, and you can still catch it. I think you can still watch that episode, and everything about astral projection is explained in that episode. Vic Flores, were you able to measure the psychometry of a person just by looking at them? Do you have a method to measure? I don't understand what you mean. Were you able to measure the psychometry of a person just by looking? Mm, how many minutes? We have 7 minutes more. I know I can't measure. We don't do that just by looking at them. You can have certain impressions of people, say on pictures. I've had experience of looking at picture and I can tell whether the person is dead or alive. And I can tell also what happened to that person. When I'm in that particular level of consciousness, I can do it. I can't do it all the time. You see. Okay. So going back to psychometry, we don't have too much time now, but this explains to you, maybe in future broadcasts, we shall explain to you why it is not good to have antiques that you don't know the background of to enter your house, or even second-hand cars, no? Because especially if it figured in an accident where a person died in that car, it creates a different vibration. So for all of this, there are so many things. And I forgot. Let me go back very briefly. After Joseph Ross Buchanan wrote his book, which is very dull, full of statistics, there was somebody, a geologist by the name of William Denton, who was able to discover that his wife is able to hold an object that he doesn't know anything about, the fossils that he found in the field, and the wife can give him a description of that object that he found. We shall discuss this. Maybe there's a lot more about the Akashic record than meets the eye. In subsequent broadcast, we shall elaborate on this Akasha. So thank you. This is Jimmy Licauco signing off. But before that, we would like to invite you to click on our webinar, innermindlearning.com, for some of these seminars which I hold online. Okay? And for those who would like to have some regression or consultancy, you may call ano ba number ng 0998-988-6292, okay, or 8810-7245 for inquiries, for suggestions, comments. Thank you so much, and good day to everyone.